Hi everyone, and welcome back to Isolation Station. This is the Anti-Social Distancing podcast. We're doing a bit of a special episode today. For the past couple of weeks, Peru's gone through, a lot of people are calling it a crisis, right? I think it's really important that as a podcast that we acknowledge that and we talk about it. So previously this week, I put a video on the MIC Instagram page asking for if anybody had any questions to ask about the current situation. We thank you so much if you sent us anything. We picked our favourites and we're going to look at the questions and we're going to answer them today. Okay, so let's have a look at the first question.
Hi, Mr. George. I have a question for you. Why was Vizcarra vacated and was it unconstitutional? Thank you. Bye.
So that's a very interesting question. And obviously there are two parts to the question. The first part, why was Vizcarra vacated, has a couple of possible answers. So what we do know is that about 2.5 weeks ago, lots of evidence came out that could suggest that when Vizcarra was the governor of Moquegua, he took bribes for construction projects. When that information came out, lots of people were saying, well, there should definitely be an investigation. And I think about 90% of the Peruvian public said that they supported an investigation. Congress and Vizcarra weren't getting along. There were a lot of disagreements between Congress and Vizcarra. In September, they tried to vacate Vizcarra before for another reason that could have been corruption. Because Vizcarra came in when he was the vice president, and last year when he dissolved Congress, he lost his other vice president. If Vizcarra is removed, or when he was removed, spoilers, there is no vice president to take over. So the next in line is the president of Congress. Essentially what that means is Congress was able to create the idea of Vizcarra has done bad things, we need to get rid of him, in order for them to put one of their own as the president. In the Constitution, it says that the president can be vacated for a number of reasons, and one of them is permanent moral or physical incapacity as declared by Congress. A lot of the times when something is written in a constitution, it's open for interpretation, and in Peru, the people that interpret it are the Constitutional Tribunal, right? And it's not declared. Something isn't declared to be constitutional or unconstitutional until the Constitutional Tribunal decide. And so Congress basically said, well, we think in the Constitution that's how it is. And so we're going to remove Vizcarra and put Merino in charge. It seems quite hypocritical because more than half, 68 people in Congress, have been either in the past or now, investigations by the police have been opened against them, right? A lot of them about corruption. So to say we're going to remove Vizcarra because of corruption and we're going to replace him with somebody, Merino also was investigated for corruption, it seems very hypocritical. In the past week, the Tribunal Constitucional have taken the case and talked about it, but really they didn't give any opinion on the case, right? There's a number of people in the court and they vote, and for it to be declared either constitutional or unconstitutional, they need a majority, and they didn't have a majority. So to say whether it is fundamentally constitutional or unconstitutional is not clear. Personally, I think probably not, but it doesn't really matter what I think. Okay, so let's have a look at question number 2.
How are you? I hope you're all okay. My question is, what is the Coordinadora Republicana and why did it support Merino? See you soon. Thank you.
Okay, so the Coordinadora Republicana is basically a group of really conservative, a little bit fashy, old white men and women who are not happy with how Peru has progressed. Right? They feel that Peru is advancing in a way that doesn't benefit them, and so they want to change it. They want to take Peru back to how it was before. At the beginning of the month, so before the withdrawal of Vizcarra and everything, they basically announced that they thought that Peru was a dictatorship. It's ironic, isn't it? They have a Facebook page which, like all political Facebook pages, has completely 100% valid and true and accurate information. And basically, they're just a group of old, rich, white people that don't like what's happening now, and they want to have more power and more influence over what is going to happen in the future. Merino was basically, to put it nicely, a useful idiot, right? He had no support of his own, he had no political power of his own, so they used him and they thought, well, we'll put him in charge and then we'll influence him, we'll do what we want because he'll do what we want. One of the members of the Coordinadora Republicana was a man called Antaro Flores Arauz. He was the prime minister of Merino's government. And just for you to understand just how old and just how white the guy was, he didn't know what left you on red meant. So that tells you a lot. Okay, let's have a look at question number 3.
Hi, Mr. George. I have a question for you. Why did police act so violent toward protesters? Why did they have to kill 2 people? That's it. Bye.
So, there are a lot of people that would say that the police violence towards the protest was a couple of bad guys, and most of the police were lovely and nice and friendly, and basically were the police in Kylie Jenner's Pepsi advert. Because of the amount of violence towards protesters, it seems unlikely that it was just a couple of bad guys. It feels like there were orders for them to do it. According to a lot of sources, the orders came from the government. They came from Merino, they came from Flores Arauz, and they came from the Minister of the Interior, Gaston Rodriguez. Police were seen to have used almost like marbles, basically glass bullets. Some people found even metal balls that they were firing at protesters. There was a lot of tear gas shot into the crowd, as everyone saw, and loads of physical violence using batons to basically beat down the protest. Why were they violent? Well, basically the police were given orders to basically try and disperse the crowds, and the only way that they were going to be able to do that, in their opinion, was to disperse them by any means necessary. This happened since the Monday, and the Inti and Brian were murdered on the Saturday. So, it felt like at some point it was going to be inevitable, especially as the media didn't talk about it at all. So, I guess question number 4.
Hi, Mr. George. I have a question for you. Why did you, as a person not from Peru, went to a protest? I hope you can answer me. Thank you.
So I think that's a very interesting question, and a lot of people have asked me that question. Well, I mean, fundamentally, number one is that even though I'm not from Peru, I still live here. Even though, I don't have an NAE, laws that happen in Peru still affect me, right? If it's not like during the toque de queda, I was able to leave my house and say, oh, it's okay because I'm not Peruvian. So anything that the government were going to do, I was affected by. And even though I can't directly participate in politics, I can't vote, doesn't mean I don't have an opinion about what's happening. I've lived here for almost 9 years. In January, it'll be 9 years. And honestly, it was this time that was the first time where I really, really felt strongly that I wanted to get my Peruvian nationality. People showing their passion for wanting a change, people showing their disagreement with such a difficult situation. And yeah, it's really want me to start the process of getting Peruvian citizenship. I guess that's question number 5.
Good morning, Mr. George. What is a Grupo Terna and how are they related to the people in Lima disappearing? Goodbye.
So, the Grupo Terna is basically the undercover police in Peru. They're police that don't have to dress up like a policeman. According to international law, it's actually illegal for undercover police to be part of protests, right? Because there's a lot of chance, and we saw evidence that it happened, of police undercover in protests, either planting evidence on people, either carrying out violence and illegal acts so that other police can come into the protest and act violently towards the other protesters, or they can influence people to commit illegal things to arrest them. So during protests that are against the government forces being part of the protests isn't something that internationally is allowed to happen. A lot of people said that the Grupo Terna were part of the protests, were involved, and obviously arrested lots of people. And that's where we have people disappearing. When the police arrest you, they take you to a precinct, and they fill out a form that basically shows to the state, this is where this person is. The Grupo Terna, it seemed like they didn't do that, right? They took people and they took them to places without any official register of where that person is. On Monday evening, one of the disappeared people, on Sunday there were 15 of them. On Monday evening, Luis Fernando Araujo reappeared, I guess you would say, and said that the Grupo Terna had kept him in a room, they had tortured him, they had beat him, and they even played messages from his mother asking where he was and really worried, and laughed at them. So you can see that this group were not acting like, how you would imagine the police should be acting. Question number 6.
Hi, Mr. George. I have a question for you. So, why did Merino wait all the way until Sunday afternoon to resign if all his cabinet resigned on Saturday night? I look forward to your answer. Bye.
It's a very interesting question. And with a lot of these questions, there's no 100% true answer. Unless Merino says why, we won't know 100%. But there's lots of evidence that we can basically piece together to tell us why. So firstly, according to the Constitution, if the president commits a crime and his cabinet doesn't resign immediately, they also are guilty of that crime. So the cabinet didn't resign on Sunday evening because they felt morally disgusted by what had happened. They were doing it basically because they didn't want to go to jail. According to Gustavo Gorriti from IDL Reporteros, on Sunday morning, Merino called the army to try and get the army on the streets. He wanted to implement a 24-hour curfew, maybe even extending over multiple days. And he also wanted to go, well, not him personally, but he wanted the police to go to the organisers of the protests' homes and arrest them in their house. However, the army said no. And I think at that point he probably realised that, the game was up. He didn't have any supporters anymore. It was time for him to go. Antero Flores was on the news and said that he tried calling Merino and Merino had ignored him and even on WhatsApp, and didn't even give him a sticker or something. It was just nothing. So, question 7.
Good afternoon, Mr. George. From a sun-kissed Huanchaco, I have a question for you. How and why was Francisco Sagasti chosen? And what do you think he will do? Goodbye.
So first, I talked a bit before about why Merino was put in as president after Vizcarra. So when the president is removed, if there's no vice presidents, the next person is the president of Congress. So when Merino resigned, so did the president of Congress and the other members of what in Spanish is called La Mesa Directiva of Congress. What Congress needed to do was basically to choose a new president of Congress and his helpers, I guess. The first list of candidates after quite a lot of negotiation was a woman called Rocío Silva Santisteban. There were parties that said that they would vote for her, and the only reason why the list was presented was because that list, after negotiations, was shown to have enough votes to become president. Lots of people had unease about Rocío Silva Santisteban because they said that she was a communist, that she supported terrorists. It's quite common in Peru that anybody with sort of left-leaning ideology that doesn't follow what the norm says, which is big businesses and sort of rich people, that anybody that doesn't follow that is called a communist, is said that they support terrorists. Even Sagasti was said that he supported terrorists. That list didn't have enough votes. The people, after negotiation, said that they would vote for it, and they didn't, including Acuña's party. And because after that Congress could see that people were very angry, they realised on Sunday that they had to get a new list together. So after a lot of coordination, everyone knew that the president of Congress had to be one of the people that didn't vote for Vizcarra's removal. Eventually they chose Francisco Sagasti, who is from El Partido Morado, which is Julio Guzmán's party. And he had enough votes, and he was able to become president. The other part, how do you think he'll do? We have another question afterwards that sort of asks the same thing, so I'm going to answer that later on. Next question.
Hello everyone, and hello Mr. George. Today I have a question for you, which is, how do you find about the protest? None of the TV channels show anything. Thanks for answering my question. Bye.
From what everyone says, in the last week or two and during the protest, the media were honestly embarrassing. It was one of the first times that I've been glad that I don't own a television and that I don't watch Peruvian news channels very often. I get all my information on Peruvian news from Twitter. So there's a lot of people that know about Peruvian politics that I follow on Twitter, and so looking at my Twitter feed and looking at who is talking and who is giving the information, I can have a pretty good view of what's happening. It was through Twitter where I saw all the pictures and images and videos of the police violence, of on Saturday evening the police attacking protesters who were near Congress. Things that only after Inti and Brian were murdered that the media showed. And honestly, it was, as I said before, it was embarrassing. Next question.
Hi, Mr. George. Why there are people talking about creating a new constitution? Bye.
So there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the current constitutions, what are they? The constitution is basically the ideals of a country, the list of game rules, right? Imagine you're playing Monopoly. The list of rules of Monopoly, that's the constitution. And then how you play the game, that's the laws that you make. So the constitution that we have now in Peru was written in 1993 by Alberto Fujimori. So number one is there are a lot of people that say that we shouldn't have a constitution written by somebody who was a dictator, right? It seems weird that we are in a democratic country and the rules of the game that we have were written by a dictator. Number two is that there's a lot of problems with the constitution that you can't change just by editing it. So there's a lot of edits that's been happened to the constitution, but there are fundamental parts of the constitution that you can't change. Number one is that any contract that the government has can't be cancelled, right? It seems weird, but especially if you think that when Odebrecht had all of the corruption scandals, the government was not allowed to say, right, you're not doing that anymore. All of the contracts that Odebrecht got through corruption, even those that they didn't even start yet, had to be continued, right? Because they'd already signed the contract with the government. And then the other obvious reason is because the clause of permanent moral incapacity, no one knows what it means. The Congress have used it 3 times already to try and vacate a politician, president, and so people are very worried that they'll do it again, and so those are some of the reasons why people are wanting for a new constitution. There are some people that think that say that we don't need a new constitution, we just need to adjust what we have, but that's what's up, I guess. And then here we are. The last question.
Hi, Mr. George. I hope you're really good, and I have a question for you. What will happen next? Bye. Have a really nice day.
Well, who knows? Who knows? But Sagasti has a big problem. And that the big problem that Sagasti has is that Congress has now the power to remove anyone they don't like from office. He may want to remove Congress's immunity. He may want to prosecute the police that were violent towards protesters. He may want to change the constitution. He may want to change lots of laws. But if Congress doesn't like it, they can just vote and remove one of his cabinet ministers. So until we had a new president, nothing probably major will happen. What we do know is that there are going to be elections in April of next year and a new president on July the 28th. That's all we know. Probably the new president will be somebody who didn't support the vacancia. And there are a lot of politicians that have been stained by the last 2 weeks. George Forsyth was looking like he was going to be the president, but he said 4 different things in 24 hours, and people say that he's an opportunist. Keiko supported the removal of Vizcarra. Barnechea has already said that he's not going to run. The next president will probably be somebody that says that they're going to withdraw parliamentary immunity and they're going to change or create a new constitution. So thank you to everyone that sent me a video. It was really kind of you to do it. For all of you that are still connected and still watching, thank you. Don't forget to like this video, give it a comment, and subscribe to MickTube. And we'll see you next week. Bye bye.